Good evening. I'd like to call the September 4th, 2014 regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order at 7:04 PM. In attendance, alternate member Holtgren, regular member Sienna, Gunn, and I'm acting chair Geldenzi. The first order of business on the agenda is, under new business, is Planning and Zoning Application 2014-15-4. It's a site development plan, conversion of space to auto body repair garage at 2450 Foxen Road, map 41, lot 4A to B1 zone, owner 2450 Foxen Road LLC, applicant Scott Ballard, or Ballard.
Scott, you can come up and...
Sure. If you don't mind, state your name and then you can present your
My name is Scott Ballard.
application.
I have an application in the town.
Do me just a favor, if you can just stand closer to the mic.
Sure.
So we can pick up the audio on.
Okay, my name is Scott Ballard, and I have a garage at 2450 Foxen Road, and we're applying for a general repairs permit to fix trucks. We do own trucks now, and we're just applying for a license to fix someone else's besides our own. We have an existing facility, bays are all the same. It's more of an insurance policy and a license with the state to repair other people's vehicles along with ours.
So currently you do yours?
We do our own. We have a fleet of our own trucks, and we were doing some work here and there, and to make sure that we are legal to do any work above board, we applied for a permit to do it legally with the insurance policy in the eyes of the town and the state.
Okay.
Just a couple of things for an overview. Scott went before the zoning board of appeals for the repairer's license approval. That needs to be granted by the zoning board of appeals for a repairer's license, and they need that approval to go to motor vehicle to get the repairer's license. One of the conditions that the zoning board of appeals put on, that they get the necessary planning and zoning approval for the use. And basically, it's a change, it's a use allowable in that zone. And the building's there, pretty much the operation's there, they're just coming in to get approval for that use within that existing building on the site. There's actually a couple, I think there's another repairer's license
There is.
in there, and the lease spot that got approval back in '89. But Scott's looking just for approval for his actual use within that facility.
So it's the aerial view is the building marked with the X, I guess?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's basically the bay that Scott indicated they wanted to occupy with a repairer's license within that existing building on the site.
Now, the agenda says body repair.
Yeah, that's
Is it body
incorrect.
repair, or is it gonna be mechanical repair?
Yeah, I'm not sure how body repair got in there. It's just general repair.
Okay. Does that cover both?
No.
Okay.
No, I think a body shop would require
Yeah.
some sort of fan. We don't paint anything.
Right, okay.
General repair.
Just general repair, yeah.
It's a general repair license, that's, there's actually a ZBA approval letter in the package, and that's the technical,
Yeah, it's
That's
a
the
general
actual-
repairs.
general repair license. Again, you can see that was approved at the July 14th ZBA meeting. It was granted with condition that hours of operation are to be 7 AM to 10 PM, subject to approval of site plan from the zoning board. That's the way the
Yep.
ZBA approved it.
The other business that's already been approved is in the same building?
Yeah, it is. There's 10 separate bays.
Right.
Our business occupies 3 of the 10, and Jeff's truck is a few bays down. He's one, and he does a car repair.
Okay.
He's been there since '89.
I believe there is a statement of use.
Yeah, I see the statement of use. Just give us a sec to look, wonder if we all want to just kind of look that over.
I don't think we all got it.
Hmm? You didn't get statement of use?
Oop. I stand corrected.
Great, that's the next
It's the
item.
fifth page.
That's it right there. General repair license.
Kurt, just a quick question.
Yep.
Why would the applicant have to go to the ZBA if it's,
It's actually ZBA that they need approval to go to Department of Motor Vehicles.
not us?
Right.
They're to this board for the use, but the
Site
actual ZBA has to approve motor vehicle locations, repairs license, and different things that are governed by the Department of Motor Vehicles. That's just one of the things ZBA does approve. But the use itself, again, and again, that's primarily, it's a statement of use, you know, the change of use from, say, just a, where they're doing trucking, to allow the repairers, the general repairers license in that facility that's governed by this board. And
Good
again,
question.
it was a condition that
Good question.
ZBA wanted to make sure that they had site plan approval. And it's a permissible use within that zone.
You know, that was the curve I couldn't understand. If it's permissible,
Yeah.
you know, why did they go to ZBA first instead of just coming to us?
Well,
When
they
it is
do need
permissible?
ZBA.
Yes.
I mean, they went to
Yeah.
ZBA, but ZBA did put the condition that to make sure that they had their appropriate site plan approval. And again, they're not changing the site plan, but they're changing
looks pretty
the approving,
straightforward.
the use within that facility.
Doing it for their own vehicles, now they want approval just to do it on other people's vehicles.
Are there other people in there that operate till 10 o'clock? I say this because I've had a complaint ongoing from noise from that site, not your business necessarily, but from the site. And
So normally, no. We did meet some neighbors who were unhappy with some of the noise. We did tackle that on the last two meetings. The first meeting, I've been down there since I was in high school, 20 years. And when I first applied for this permit, I had never met any of the neighbors. And the first meeting, I met them all. And I had said to them, you know, if you live so close, how come I don't know you? I've been down there since I was 18. And they said, well, the noise, and it's been an existing operation since 1961.
oh, yeah, all right.
So what we did do is, Kurt and I have worked, Kurt's been great, we've worked together to solve this. I went and got all the tenants. I said, the neighbors are upset, you have to calm this down. We notified the police department, the old owner, we bought this from the original owner about 2 years ago. He let his son and some friends shoot in the sand pit.
Yeah, I've had those complaints too.
So I wrote a letter to the sheriff, the police chief, and said, no more shooting. It's just that easy. It was something that was allowed because the owner said, okay, he was he was an older guy, he didn't care. So we did put in all kinds of things to really curb some of the noise. And I had said to these neighbors, I didn't know you guys were upset. And I never thought about it because I can't see their houses. I truly
Right.
can't. There's such a huge line of trees. So it's business as usual for us.
Yeah.
So by the second meeting, it was great. I met some of the neighbors. Two came back and said, it's been fantastic. I'm glad you worked on it. And I think maybe the noise has come and gone over the years, because I've been down there a long time. And it all depends on what you're doing. And if someone doesn't know not to be quiet, they just don't think about it.
Yeah,
So we made very
Okay.
aware that there are neighbors that are concerned.
glad you're working with the neighbors.
Yes, I don't want any trouble. I'm too young for that. We just bought it a couple of years ago. So, and there was very liberal times. We don't work on trucks. Mechanics don't come in at midnight and want to work on an engine. That's not what a mechanic does. So some of the trucks start and have to go to work, and that's kind of an old business that's been down there forever, the trucking part of it. But
Yeah.
we've curbed that too. a little upset to hear that the neighbors were so mad, even though I hadn't met them before. But we got it covered, and it's been taken care of,
Good,
so.
thank you.
Excellent. Commissioners, any other questions, comments? Ron, David, Charlie?
No,
Anything? Good?
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing, I don't see anything else outstanding. We didn't write a motion, because it's really not, it's just approving the use as submitted, revision to the use. There's not any really conditions that I could think that we put on our standard
because
conditions.
there's no construction.
Right, you're not doing anything, you're just approving the use for the location of the general repairs license in the property at 2450 Foxton Road by Scott, by Scott Ballard, as submitted, pretty much. That's, again, it's just a change in use, and he's trying to just sort of get that allowed and permitted as a use.
Okay.
Yeah, I move to approve the use shown from P&Z application 2014/15-1, site development plan, conversion of space into auto repair garage.
General, oh, okay. I guess that's good.
Okay,
Second. All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. 4-0. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
We all set?
Yep, we are.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Kurt, I'll swing down and I'll see you maybe tomorrow, next week.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
So, next order of business, under other business, A is discussion regarding proposed residential cluster and open space development off Clintonville Road.
Good evening.
Good evening. Again, when you're settled, just your name and
Okay.
your firm and.
All right.
Good.
Um,
Get rid of this.
Just an overview, they, asked for just a general presentation, discussion, and to run some ideas by the commission before they decide to proceed with anything.
So as a result, there's nothing in your packets about this?
I remember we had a brief discussion last time about
Yeah.
this, about them coming in,
Right.
right? Yep.
I'm David Gibson. I'm an attorney with Gibson and Donegan at Branford. And I'm here this evening on behalf of the owners of property on Clintonville Road, which is called the entity owning the property is Clintonville Road Associates. And first of all, I want to thank you for agreeing to meet with us informally. We think this will be helpful for us and perhaps for you in terms of the project that we're proposing in this particular area. The principals involved in Clintonville Associates are Al Secondino, who is, and Michael Belfonte. Mr. Secondino is here this evening, and Mr. Belfonte is represented by Mark Calabro, who is an advisor in his business. Both of these individuals are seasoned developers. They're experienced. They're local people, but they've done developments throughout the state and I think most of the Northeast. I think Mr. Secondino is probably well known to you because he has developed property here in North Branford, including the the Northford Ice Pavilion, which his property, which abuts the property that we're involved in this evening. The purpose of our request to meet with you really arises out of the fact that we have an idea for a development of property, and what we'd like to do is tell you what we propose, or advise you what we propose, and how we hope to gain approval of this, because it's a rather complicated procedure, because there are no regulations which cover what we're proposing. The project would be to combine a residential condominium development with a parcel of open space, a fairly large parcel of open space. This would be the condominium development, and the open space area that we're proposing is up in this corner. As I say, there's no present regulation which would cover something like this, because first of all, the properties are low, they're in close proximity to each other, they don't abut, and they're not contiguous. The parcel, which is 32-50 Clintonville Road, is located off of Clintonville Road. And to the north is the Ice Pavilion, and this is Firelight Road. This is the Firelight Alarm Company property. It's really on the corner of Clintonville Road and Firelight Road. The open space property is to the north of the Firelight property. It's bordered by the North Haven town line and the Wallingford town line, so it's really in the extreme, I believe it's northwest corner of the town. What we call the development property is about 6 acres, and it's presently zoned R40. The open space area is zoned I3. It's about 10.6 acres, and it's made up of both inland wetlands and open upland area. And this property is proposed to be not just set aside, but conveyed to either the town or the North Branford Land Trust as part of the entire project. And we'll try to show you how we plan on accomplishing it. The project itself, or the development parcel, is going to be made up of single-family residential clustered development of about 30 units of Cape-style houses, and then combine it with this open space area. We think that the open space area would be useful to the town either as passive or active recreation area. Although there's some wetlands on the property, a lot of the wetlands, they're designated as wetlands, but it's almost what I would refer to as dry wetlands. I think there's a lot that can be done with that property depending upon in the wetlands take on what can be done on that property. The neighborhood itself right now is kind of an eclectic neighborhood. It's made up of really 3 components. There's residential uses, there's the condominium development of Northford Pond Village townhouse condominiums, which is in this area. There's also single-family homes along the Clintonville Road, and obviously this would add to the residential component. There's industrial usage in the area, primarily by Firelight Alarms property, and secondly by the Ice Pavilion. The plan would include a system of connection between the residential development and the open space area. I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce Mr. Mancini, who's the key to this. Mr. Mancini is the engineer involved in developing the property, and he's with BL Company Engineers in Meriden. And he will get into the connection and into the plan in a little bit more detail when I'm finished. And he'll give you, I think, a good idea of what's proposed once we're finished. I think when this is completed, it would be a benefit not only to the developer and the people who live in these areas, but also to the town. But in order to achieve it or accomplish the development, it's going to require kind of a large undertaking for the developer in terms of the cost and time required for not only the design of the project, but also the approval process. We think it's going to be necessary to get approval, first of all, for a change or an addition to your regulations in order to cover this type of a development. So that would require an amendment to the regulations, and we have prepared a draft for that. But in addition, there would have to be a process where the regulations would have to be approved, which would be for a special approval. And once that was approved, then we'd have to get the approval for a special permit. And combined with that would be a site plan approval, would be part and parcel with a special permit approval. In addition, I think we would require inland wetlands approval for probably both parcels. We have drafted a set of proposed regulations for the special use permit and for what we call a single-family open space cluster development. I want to point out that this is a draft. It's not a finished product or in final form. We would expect to work with you, the commission, and your planner in order to develop a regulation that would work and would be acceptable to your commission, the town, and the developer. We had the opportunity back some time ago to meet with Kurt Weiss, who was very kind in giving us his opinion at the time. He had some suggestions with regard to an earlier draft of the regulation, most of which we've adopted into a later draft. What I'd like to do, I think the regulations, or at least parts of the regulations, can be explained.
Before you get there, what's the current zone of the,
R40. It's an
It is an
R40
R40.
residential.
40,000
And
square
it's
foot.
Yeah,
I3
I3 is open
Right.
space.
for the open space area.
The abutting houses are I-40, down to the lower.
R40?
R40, the residential,
Ones-
this area is R40, where the residential development is.
But the abutting properties is also
Across the
R40?
street is R40, adjacent to us is a previously approved, like a PUD for the condominium.
Those are three houses out to the left there,
Yeah,
aren't they?
this is R40 as well. This is a different zone because of the condominium approval that was there. It was like a clustered condominium.
I think our plan of conservation and development spoke to that kind of area for industrial, right, development?
yeah, I think so. Because I think
I'll
it'll be a
comment on
hard
the
sell.
plan of conservation and development, if I may, after I refer to the draft with the regulations. To say, this,
I'm just going to interrupt real fast. So really today, for the let me just restate, the purpose today, informal, we're kind of looking this stuff over, and we gave some initial feedback, right? We're not going into detail on anything, so it's kind of a cursory
I think it's
overview
fair-
of things. Okay.
I think it's fair to point out, we're not here to get any type of approval
I
or
understand. I
assurance,
just wanted to
just to
make sure I was
get
clear.
your ideas before we go too much further and invest
Yeah, I
too
understand.
much more.
David, if I can just, before we lose the point of somebody said the plan of conservation and industrial, My client who developed the ice hockey rink started in '98, it was built and opened in '99. Very successful in the sense that it served a huge purpose for many reasons, including getting Quinnipiac University to actually have Division I hockey. That part of it is done very well. The rest of the land has really sat fallow, and the piece in front they bought after they had bought that land. They haven't had a lot of interest in either piece. About 8 years ago, the parcel that we did this doodle on, they actually came here trying to actually respect the idea that that could be used for industrial, and it was not received very well. There was a great deal of buzz by neighbors who basically wanted it to stay residential. So the idea that was just discussed, we actually tested the waters, withdrew the application, and you probably recall that. And so hoping that over the last several years, there would be a renewed potential interest in that. But there's a already cul-de-sac built to an already possible second industrial pad, commercial pad, and no one's knocking on the door of developing here. So, and personally, with all of the residential that's here, it just doesn't seem like that would be the appropriate place for another industrial use, commercial.
I was actually referring to the open space. Is it undevelopable?
Well,
It's I-3. So,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we get more specific than we need to get. I was referring,
Oh,
I was referring to the
oh.
existing I-3.
You're
So
back here.
you're giving,
Yeah.
you're gonna say it's open space. If it's I-3 and it's developable, then why would we wanna do that? That was my comment.
Well.
We wanna develop industrial zones,
Yeah,
not make them open space.
No, great point.
That was my
There's Muddy River,
Mhm.
the one thing that is not been discussed is that the Muddy River runs parallel to the town of Wallingford and North Branford. Then it turns essentially south and then runs again along it going in a north-south direction. So one of the problems with this is there would have to be a significant crossing to the wetlands, very wide crossing of the wetlands, as well as a crossing over the Muddy River, which is a designated flood hazard mapped FEMA river.
There's nothing on this side of it, on the south side of the Muddy River?
There's-
I industrial?
Yeah, this is industrial right here. That's our second pad. The lot that,
Yeah, where is it? Maybe
yep.
sketch out the open space, proposed open space.
The overall industrial parcel is right here, the red line, okay? All right,
Yep.
it's right here. The parcel that was parceled off was for the hockey rink.
Yep.
Right there with the darker line. And this is remaining developable industrial land. The parcel in front here, the roughly 6.4 acres, is the R40
Yep.
parcel.
Yep.
So hopefully that, but this blue line is the Muddy River. right
Well, the open space area is where now that you're proposing to have open
there.
space?
Is
The yellow line up?
Okay, so
Yes,
it's on the
exactly.
other side of the Muddy River.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And currently, great questions, currently, we have an access, permanent easement for vehicle and pedestrian through the fire line building, parking, this aisle here, and it takes you to a vehicle bridge that's in place right here at the corner of the 11 acres plus or minus that would be dedicated open space. This is currently used right now recreationally already for model airplanes.
But that piece has severe restrictions on it in terms of wetlands and floodplain.
Floodplain, yes.
The piece they're talking about, it's floodplain, and you can see on, I think.
So
what
it's
they
high
gave
land,
out-
it's hills?
High- There's
No, it's
a,
flat, but there's floodplain.
Yeah, that was, so,
Yeah.
my original, I was very obscure in my question, I guess. I was just wondering if it's, I heard I-3 and I'm like, hey, we can
No, but-
develop I-3, is it really,
I got you.
is it developable, is it
Not really
not
the
really
west side.
practical,
No.
then maybe
It's-
open
it's-
space is good.
you'd
If
have
you
to
can,
put so
if
much
you can
into
develop
it.
that, then
now.
Right,
We
why
wanna-
take it off the, I get
Yeah,
it.
fine.
No,
That's-
the
that
east
was-
side of the Muddy River is definitely developable.
I got
The
you.
west side is.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and then the little exhibit I gave you shows the actual easement that ties. That's not proposed, that's in place already.
And
With
the
regard to
land,
the-
the land in Wallingford that's used for planes now, how's that accessible?
Not owned, it's all through this parcel.
So the area where there's no trees now,
Yeah, this is where the planes,
and how they access that now? Through that road?
through the
That
right of
bridge?
way
Okay.
and over that bridge, and just the way we would propose that the open space would be. Right.
I'd also point out with regard to the plan of conservation and development, I think that this, our discussion to this point with regard to the plan is that it's addressed by the plan of conservation and development, at least in the sense that it's categorized as vacant, underutilized, commercial/industrial property, this specific piece. And I believe the reason for that is the wetlands themselves, because I don't think it's possible or likely that it can be developed as an industrial site with the wetlands that are designated on it. However, I would also point out that these wetlands, I hate to use the term, but are almost dry wetlands. There is the river, but there's also, the wetlands themselves are designated, but it's property which probably can be utilized for some purposes such as either passive or active recreation. You could put, the town could put walking paths, running paths, it could probably be developed as for athletic fields. That type of development probably wouldn't run into as much difficulty as certainly trying to develop a site for industrial or commercial uses. The other area that's brings it into conformity, I believe, with the plan of conservation and development is the fact that it's in close proximity to another large area of wetlands, which is just off the site east of the condominium development here. This is open space, which is owned by the North Branford Land Conservation Trust. And I think through a system of perhaps easements and right-of-way, there would be a way of connecting up these two wetlands. And that's something that is addressed by your plan of conservation and development, is to try to join up areas of open space.
David, can I just, I just want to physically clarify that for a second, because that's a really important point. We control the parcel that abuts this very large open space. So very easily through the remaining industrial land, an easement path can be put in that will link this large open space with this proposal of an open space through this parcel, because it's not developed yet. So that's, I just want to make sure, we physically control the link. This is all of our land here. And then we have that easement that brings us to the bridge, that brings you to it. So it's not like this is, we need to create a brand new bridge crossing or a wetland filling or anything like that.
Is that bridge a private road right now?
It's access, it's private access over to this piece of land.
So it's a private bridge right now?
But cars, vehicles use it. If you look in this aerial, there's actually probably 20 cars parked there, right here,
Mhm.
along this.
So does a private bridge have to meet state code?
You know, there's details of what that, you know, is it a conservation easement for active use, passive use, is it open space conservation? I think those are details. What we're saying is, we understand we're asking for density here, but we're also saying there's a way to link the land from an open space perspective so that in reality, the two parcels together really don't create a dense development, but they're just this they're not directly connected, but they're within 1,000 feet of each other. which is-
That current proposal for development of 30 houses right now under the R40 code only allow, what, 6 houses?
6 houses, yeah.
Is there septic there, is there city
It's
water,
all city water, sewer,
city sewer?
yeah, yeah. Sewer is right in the cul-de-sac drive that comes up to the arena.
To get back to the bridge, who would maintain that bridge?
Well, if this proposal were to be adopted.
If the town was given the land, then the responsibility for maintaining that road would be the town's.
Yeah, it's really a driveway, it's not a road.
No, I'm talking about the bridge.
Yeah, it's a bridge that's on a driveway.
It's a bridge over a river.
Yep, yep.
Then it would be, I'm just, you know, I'm thinking out loud, and these are the questions that, you know, need to be addressed. Who's gonna maintain it, who's gonna pay for it, that type of thing. The other thing is, do I read this right? This is basically row housing.
Well,
They're 10 feet apart?
they're not 10 feet apart. So as part of the draft regulations.
Separation between units, 10 feet.
Well, that's because there's an imaginary lot line. They're 20 feet apart.
Separation between units,
Right.
10 feet.
The unit is there's a, what we're calling in here is a development unit. Each development unit has a 10-foot separation to a common line that's between 2 units. So unit to unit is 20 feet between the.
So the separation between units is 20 feet, not 10 feet.
Correct.
So this is wrong.
The way
The
we're
lot
defining,
separation is 10.
yes, the way we're defining the unit is on a parcel that is parceled out and has to have a minimum area of 8,600 square feet.
The side setback says 20 feet. So is that 40 feet?
Now, the side setback is for the perimeter. Remember, these are not lots. This is a open space cluster development.
Or is the side, the front, the back, or what?
The side, the front, the back, that dimensional code has to do with the overall perimeter of the 6 acres,
Oh, okay.
okay?
So, I just want to get
So
back to my
between
original
units-
question.
20 feet.
So maybe just, I can clarify again. I don't know if today is to go through every last detail of this, or is that what you want us to do? Do we
No.
want to get the general
No.
feel, we'll take this home, we'll come back
I think what.
maybe with questions and comments? We're not going to go, I'm
No.
not prepared to go through every
Exactly.
point on this.
No.
This is a 5-6 page document. I don't think that's what the intention of
What we're just trying to
today
say is that we have a tax-paying applicant here who has owned this land, done very well with the development that he's done. However, he struggled to do anything more with the property. What we're saying is across the street from us is an older residential neighborhood that has smaller houses that are similar to the size houses. We believe that this type of development, if and only linked with these regulations, okay? These regulations as written would not allow for this to be stamped out all over town, okay? They're specific to, you have to have a massive piece of open space land that goes with this development. This isn't like we're going to option the back land, we already own that land. What we're saying is, we believe that this type of clustered housing could be a nice transition from the single-family, smaller homes across from Clinton Road, State Road, Route 22, to transitioning towards the ice rink and in between the two. That's what the regulations we developed.
I think you have to take into account what the neighborhood consists of now, and that's what I started to talk about a few minutes ago. It already has industrial and commercial uses around the neighborhood. It has residential uses and it has open spaces, open space areas. And what this would do is, as John says, it would work as a transitional buffer, and also it would, it's in conformity with what already exists in this neighborhood. And that's why we think that this particular property is really something that can benefit by, let's say, a little bit more of an imaginative approach towards the development than just, let's say, the 6 houses on a residential piece. I think it's beneficial not only to the developer, but certainly to the town and the neighborhood and that kind of the entire town. With regard to the regulations, I think John probably distributed some. My thought was not to distribute until after it's done, because what I'd like to do is not read the regulations to the point that we get into the specifics, because, as I said, it is a work in progress, and it's probably going to have to be some modifications as we go along. And also, it's going to depend upon we have to find somebody who would be a donee for this property. And we would have to have some idea as to what the plan was. Is it going to be active recreational use? Is it going to be passive or what? That will have some bearing on the plan itself and also on the regulations.
Yeah.
But the regulations are, I think, crafted at least to make it almost site-specific. I haven't researched it,
Yeah,
but I don't think there's any other place in town where you could get all the elements that we try to include in the regulation.
That was my concern as you're presenting, is I want to be able to be comfortable when the many other homeowners that have 6+ acres come in and say, why can I only have 6 houses when you have up in Northford 30 or whatever it is?
Right.
Well, I think one thing that has to be taken into consideration.
That's
Right.
something we definitely have to take into consideration. I mean,
And-
there's a lot of things you gotta take into
Mr. Chair,
consideration.
one point before I forget, and Kurt, you could probably add to this. There was a regulation in the regulations not so long ago that was clustered housing that was removed. It wasn't being used that effectively. And so that, how long ago do you remember, Kurt, how long ago that was? That was weird.
I mean, it was the cluster development, those regulations were rescinded,
Vividly remember.
pretty much after, I think after Montgomery Village and some of those things.
Maybe it was like a dozen years ago.
Yeah, I would say about 10 years ago, that allowed for cluster
Right. So
development.
it's not like this is the first time regs in town have ever adopted some cluster.
I believe the property right to the
Yeah,
east.
this parcel that used that.
Norfolk Pond condominiums
Right.
was developed under the old cluster regulation.
One thing I point out with regard to the density, the open space that's being offered is about 11 acres.
Yeah.
Yeah, as compared to the development site, which is about 6 acres. And yes, some of it is wetlands, but it's usable space for open space as opposed to industrial or commercial.
Who's the targeted customer for the houses?
I'm sorry.
Well.
Who's the targeted customer for the houses?
That was a point that I wanted to make. So the home size, it's a one-car garage. It's I would say the size of the unit is roughly 1,800 square feet, 1,400 to 1,800 square feet. Master bedroom on the first floor. So the goal, and no more than 2 bedrooms per unit. So the goal of this development is it's somewhat targeted to young professionals who want to live in their town that they grew up in, but they can't really afford to because all that's on the market for them is a much bigger house or a house that they can't necessarily afford, because not only do they got to buy the house, buy the unit, but then they got to pay for, the taxes and maintenance of all of it.
So who owns the property in this? Is there cluster homes? Are they owned by the homeowners or owned by
No,
the?
It'd be a condominium development, right? But it's detached, single family, it's not attached. So there would be
1,800.
a common ownership element to the development.
You don't remember how many units per acre?
And the other point is that it would also be targeting the empty nester or the person who also wants to stay in town but wants to downsize and doesn't want to deal with the maintenance because it's going to be common. So anyway, that's a good question, David.
So would it really be considered cluster homes or be considered condominium then?
Well, Well, there's
Condominium,
Is it method of ownership?
Method of
Oh, yeah.
ownership rather than-
right.
And 1,800 square feet, what's the target price of the house? For young professionals, I mean, 1,800 square feet,
Well,
you're
it's
looking at
14 to
$350,000,
18.
$400,000.
Yeah, it's 14 to 1,800 square feet, the size. The footprints that are shown are on the box, development boxes, is like 38 to 40 by 38 to 40. It's like 40 by 40 or 38.
What's your target price on the units?
We haven't really looked at that in great detail.
But you're saying young professionals, so a young professional, you're looking at under 200,000? I don't
Well,
think so.
I guess to our point there is with a master bedroom on the first floor, we're really targeting and only 2 bedrooms. We're not targeting families here,
Mhm.
or people that are buying it to start a family.
Right.
We're targeting people that, I know we have a project in North Haven under construction right now on Route 5, and it's an elderly facility that we're putting in. And there's over 80-something units there, and 60 have already been accounted for, because people want to stay in the town that they're in, but they really don't have a lot of options. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of,
Okay.
but
You need those
it's a good question.
stuff, looks like? It's going.
So, Mr. Chairman, in terms of the size and the target audience, we certainly don't know what the price range is, but if that's relative, and you need an answer to that, we will. We appreciate the fact that, David, we just want to spend a few more minutes just highlighting some of the premise of the regs, but I think maybe what we're hoping for is, we don't want to take the next step of doing a formal application without some feedback from you guys. And obviously, it's non-binding, we don't have an application in front of you. But maybe the mechanism could be through your planner and through Mr. Weiss. You guys could, if there's any comments you have, you can just feed them through him, and,
Yeah.
we can save time that way, and if that works.
Yeah.
With regard to the regulation, I don't think it's necessary. I would only point out that for me to read, because you already have it, to get an idea of what we're trying to achieve here. I think if you read the first article, which is the general description of what we're looking for, and the purposes, which is the second section of paragraph, it's only a page and a half or so. That really is the crux of what we're trying to accomplish here. And secondly, the rest of the regulation is really with regard to the application process, the procedure that we expect to go through, the standards that are included, which would have to be met, and the findings that your commission would have to make if they would consider it. But I would agree with you, I don't think it's necessary to go through the nuts and bolts at this time of the regulation or the bulk standards that are included, because those will probably have to be shifted to some extent based upon who gets the open space and how the development works out.
Okay.
So I would agree with John, what we're really looking for here is some guidance from your commission, and we would expect that what we would do is work through your staff to try to come up with not only the regulations, but the bulk standards, so we can achieve the overall plan.
Hey, Kurt, do you remember what the density is at Montgomery Village, how many units an acre that came out? Good.
That one's not much, because that was a very large property, but it's nowhere in it. Again, if you look at the 6-acre property, if you look at the 6 acres of it, I think that's about, 5 per,
Yeah.
That's five
five
per-
per acre.
five.
And I don't think we have anything. If you tie it into the other one,
Oh, yeah.
that's the question. And
That
how you wanna
that
look at it.
doesn't do much for the density of construction on the 6 acres.
Right. But Montgomery Village was just such a different, that wasn't too high at all, to be honest with you. Marshfield Apartments, just to give you a sort of I think that's about 4 per acre or something like that. You know, those are apartment units, but just to give you an idea, I think that's what that ended up with. But Montgomery Village is much lower, because it's such a large piece of the way they laid it out. I can get that, and we can talk about it later.
Mr. Chair, just to that point, I mean, we could easily put an apartment building, you can come, ask for the same relief, not allow an apartment building, ask for the same density, put these units all in one building. What, to speak to the point of what we believe the people need is the residential units, detached single-family residential units, the target of people, setting aside the cost, which is a relative question, but the point is that's a different opportunity than putting 30 units in a building where it's only going to take a small little footprint, and it's, you know, you can get 30 units in a footprint that's 160 feet long by 60 feet wide, and you're done, and you build 30 parking spaces. So you could do that, but it's not, to me, that product is just not North Branford, you know, and it's not for this neighborhood. That's really what we're trying to say.
Any comments?
No, thanks.
Any comments?
Nothing more tonight.
Yeah, I just have the three things we've kind of mentioned is, I mean, again, for me we have to be cognizant of every other 6-acre homeowner that wants to develop their property in an R40 zone. We have to be sensitive to that. I understand I haven't obviously read this.
Yeah, when you
but
read your
there's a bunch of, yeah,
the
so there's all.
purpose will
yeah, I
definitely
understand.
curtail that happening.
But regardless of that, we'll have people
Right.
saying, hey, you know,
Right.
the other thing is I understand the connection of the open space, but I really question the value of it's back there. I mean, for how many people in our town are really going to go enjoy that open space? It's the corner of North Haven and Wallingford.
Yeah, and
It's connecting, yes, but, so I just mean that, so bear me out, it's a value, I mean, I don't know how much value, you'd have to really convince me of that it's a really good thing for us. And then, as Ron mentioned, the bridge, I think, is just something to think about, maybe to a lesser
Yeah,
extent.
not only the bridges, the more I look at it, it's, if the town has that open space, it's off a private road. Now, does that make the town a member of the condominium?
it's not off a private road.
It's the driveway.
That's a public street. This is a public street right here.
No, up where you get to the access.
The one up to the,
Right here. This is just a drive. It's just a driveway aisle. So we have the rights to that access. We have access. Those rights would get turned over to the town. I will just say, while you guys are reading this, what will help
I
your
haven't read it, so.
experience. No. When you read it, please take a ride out there, go over that bridge, and go see what an amazing, beautiful property that is back there. When you go back there and you park your car on that road, you hear this river's always running. You can hear the river running. I personally, maybe this is the designer in me, but if you look at that, have you been back there? I mean, it's a pretty piece of property. So I'm not saying that what we're proposing is all 100% correct, but I would say the experience of going back there to see this 11-acre piece, I think it would be well worth it for you guys. And you could drive over that bridge, so it's not like you got to walk it.
Yep.
So,
I think I'm just speaking more also to our planning
Yeah.
part of our hat.
yep,
So we've got to look at that as well.
understood. Well, thank you for your time.
Anything else? Commissioners have any comments?
can I have a copy of the regulations? The draft?
Yeah, there, we,
Yes, sorry.
oh,
I may have taken
you,
yours.
did I miss you? Sorry.
Maybe I
Not yet.
have some notes
There.
there. so-
Yeah, there you go.
Good,
Sorry.
thank you.
I thought I had, everybody else had.
I probably
right?
took them on.
That's all right.
Known for that.
Mr. Chairman, if you prefer, I don't mind reading them into the record. I just felt that to have them before you was necessary, but I would certainly be willing to read them into the record. Those two sections.
Anyone have, I was thinking I would, in my leisure, kind of read them over and we can comment through.
Yeah.
If that, unless we want, what do you think? Unless we want to
Yeah,
read them on the record.
If there's anything major in here, I guess, is,
Yeah, I
because I
think,
think the applicant is kind of, feel he has some fine tuning to do.
yeah.
Yeah, I think what this is, I hope, is an example of regulations that can achieve what we're proposing. And that's why I say it's kind of a work in progress, but I think you get the feel for what we're trying to do here is to combine these two elements, the residential cluster development with the actual transfer of what I consider to be in the value, a valuable piece of land for recreational type. If it was just gonna sit there and do nothing, I think whoever gets involved in this piece, whether it's the land trust or the town, I think there are uses that, good uses, so it isn't just something that's sitting.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
AC's on, is it? What? The AC isn't on, is it? Oh, I guess we're toasty.
It is getting warm.
All right, next order of business, under other business B, it's discussion regarding the Shantz Farm subdivision and changes to lots 28, 30, and 31. Lot 28 was reduced in size to allow for separate driveways. That's it. Lot 28 was reduced in size to allow for separate driveways.
There's nobody here.
Oh, there's no one here,
That was
okay.
more
Yep.
internal, just for direction. On the Shantz Farm property, which is under construction right now, what the developers came in and what the preliminary talked to us, there's 3 sheets, 4 sheets, 11 by 17s. And actually on the second page of your attachment, sheet 1 of 1, I just put a little colors on there. Yellow is what was, that was the existing layout that was approved as part of the Shantz Farm subdivision. There's lots 31, lots 29, and 28. And you can see them in yellow. What they're proposing to do, and actually in lot 30, what they're proposing to do is to provide a separate driveway access to lot 30. Currently, it's under a shared driveway access over lot 31.
Oh, here it is, okay, gotcha. Yep.
And what they'd like to do is just provide separate driveways for the 2 lots. And that requires them to shift down, make a minor shift to lot 29 and lot 28 to accommodate that shift.
Kurt, these are still legal lots, right?
They're still legal lots, yeah, and that's it. And I guess the question was, it's been a while, and a lot of times, is it administrative approval, or do they need to come back to the commission? Because really, it's a lot line adjustment more so than anything. But we wanted to run that question by the commission. It's not really, not creating new lots, they're
Doesn't
not,
look like.
they're just,
Yeah, I don't think so.
No.
They're still,
I think it's,
they're still
They still
40,000
lots. I mean,
square
and
foot
again,
lots
the-
plus.
the gist of what they're
Good
doing
question,
is,
is it-
and I can see why they do it, because they want separate driveways to separate lots. And I think the way it normally happened, that Carol would sign, because I believe this happened before, sign off administratively approve the revision, noting that it's just a revision per se. And it wouldn't come back to the commission, where you're having to, because they're gonna have to file a revised map, and it's gonna need somebody's endorsement on it. And that's all, I believe, happened before, and I just wanted we wanted to check with the
Yeah,
commission
no,
to
good.
make sure. he didn't have an issue.
I think I'm hearing we agree that it's just kind of an administrative change.
Exactly, that's how
So,
I was envisioning it, and we wanted to just run that by.
Charlie, yeah?
Oh, yeah, go.
Ron, Dave?
As proposed, they're showing the driveways actually being like separate, and there's a gap, a buffer between the two driveways. It won't be one big wide driveway.
That's what they're trying to do, is separate them.
It shows it like on the actual
Right.
second to last page of the
Right.
last.
And again, I'm sure it's a marketability, sales ability, you make your own.
Makes sense.
When you start sharing driveways, and we know what the shared driveways can lead to recently, and
Yes.
they're trying to eliminate that.
Yep. Okay, any other discussion on it? I think
No.
pretty straightforward. Good. Thanks, Kurt. You moving on, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
Fix the flood.
So next order of business, discussion regarding 2090 Foxen Road, Cumberland Farms, map 33, lot 26, zone B2. Request to replace existing 6 by 4 foot internally lit sign displaying cost of gasoline with 4 foot by 6 foot LED lit sign that will alternate price of gasoline depending on membership. Sounds
So what
good.
happens, you took the card in the pump and the sign changed?
LED, I like it.
So just as, I guess, quick preface, I've spoken with Carolyn about this proposal, and the LED component and the upgrade to LED didn't seem like any violation with the existing regulations, in my read of them. It was more the alternating between the membership and the non-membership price.
Right.
And the change in dimensions, it would just be turning it, so the total square footage would not be increasing or decreasing.
So
It's
it
kind of
just
an odd-
randomly, or?
Well, I have a video if you want to take a look at it. But basically, the only thing we're doing, if you look here at this sign, this would be a 4x6. We're installing this Smart Pay member placard, which is 6 inches high by 60 inches wide. So that will alternate from Smart Pay member to non-member, and that will
After
go
a certain
from
time frame?
349 to 359. Yes.
So as I'm driving by, I may see it
They
once.
set them at, their standard, they're setting them at is 8 seconds.
8 seconds, okay.
3 cars can drive by on a 35-mile-an-hour road in 8 seconds. It can change from 0 to 60 seconds. We feel anything over 30 kind of defeats the purpose of letting people know what's going on. So do you want to see the video?
I don't need to see it.
Have you seen it in the past?
Yeah,
or-
I think so. I can, this reminds what it is.
So we didn't know if, we don't really consider it a flashing sign like, road light flashing.
Alternating
So
sign.
that's why she just showed you that.
Right, and the only other sign that I knew of in town that did this, that had been approved by the former CEO, was the high school sign, which was a new sign that has a revolving message.
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
I don't see any problem with it. I think we can administratively approve it.
Any
I just got
questions,
one
comments?
question, sort of off topic though. It's regarding-
Stay on topic, Dave.
Regarding Cumberland Farms though.
Okay.
A number of years back, I don't know, it's 5, 8 years ago, they talked about redoing Cumberland Farms and actually, I think, rotating it and then redoing West Pond Road. Is that still in the works?
Cumberland Farms is doing a lot of work on all their gas stations. That's called an AIM project. And what happens is they go in and they either redo the convenience store, they change their colors to like a green and blue instead of the blue and orange. But they're doing, say, 50 a year, and they're slowly getting to everybody. And some of them, they are doing a raise and rebuild. So that, like I said, we did show that other thing. That was 2007, because they sent me that site plan, but I go, I don't think that's what's there right now.
No, they
It's
haven't.
Something that they.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything to the building and.
You gotta
Right, but
approve.
I don't know if
For
you've
you.
seen other Cumberland Farms.
Some of
that
them are
definitely
really
make improvements.
nice
Yes.
looking gabled roofs and stuff.
They just
and-
redid one in Ansonia on Division Street.
Yeah.
They did it in 3 months. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, I've seen some really nice ones.
Yeah, so we'll get there.
Yeah, good.
So that's still in the works, right?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, they're all the way down to Florida and everywhere, so they're busy.
So any comments on the sign or anything?
Yeah, it should read like New Jersey 319.
Yeah, and they come out and pump your gas, they don't let you pump your own gas.
I
in
got
New
my
Jersey.
gas when I came here, and I'm in Massachusetts, so that was bad.
Yeah. Exactly.
They come with farms already.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we're, yeah, go ahead.
The only quick question is line of sight. I mean, I'm sure you did studies that it's not going to interfere with the
Well,
traffic
yeah,
pulling
It looks
out.
like, I don't know, to be some kind of shop next door or something.
The hydraulic place.
Yeah, hydraulic machine shop.
This is
No, no,
like-
like-
There's another sign there, I mean.
No, I
Line
meant
of sight to
your
traffic,
traffic
yeah.
pulling out of Cumberland Farms, it's not going to
Oh,
impede.
no.
Okay.
No, it's set quite far back from the
So you're going like, just turning it,
Just
the
turning
dimension,
it.
so, that's good question. I don't know if it's far enough out, but it's a good question.
I took some pictures of the property.
Okay.
Would they mount it the way it's shown in the picture, or would they mount it centered on the post?
Well, they can't mount it centered on the post because, you know what I mean, there's mechanisms inside it, you know what I'm saying? That's a light post that it's on.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you mean, put it over there like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
I
how to
don't
do
know.
that with the pole in there. Put a hole.
Mounting bracket on it, I mean,
Yeah, they're just gonna have some kind of thing like that.
because they got electronics going to the sign, this is a non-electronic sign.
See, your
now.
bylaws are a little, I think your height is 12 foot on a sign and stuff like that. So if they ever do the site over, and I said do, but if they ever do the site over, they might ask for a variance for a higher sign. Because if you notice, the Cumberland Farm sign is on the other side of the property and the price sign is over here, and that's not normal. Normally, you have a twin pole
Yeah, yeah.
sign.
I think, is your concern, because I think
Far
the
enough
concern Robert
from
is
the road.
line of sight's a good one, but I think,
Yeah,
I don't
it's
think
far
it's
enough
a,
back,
I think
yeah.
it's far enough
Yeah.
back, so.
Yeah.
And
That's-
that'll eliminate this smart pay, there's a smart pay sign there, that'll eliminate that. Clean up the site a little.
I'm saying, if it was a restriction from the edge of the sign to the edge of the road, they could
Yeah.
put it on the post
Yeah.
and move it back, but I
Mhm.
don't know if there's a regulation
It looks like it's set back.
from the edge.
I did the original LED price sign, you know, we started this back in 2010, and I think we were proposing a double pole, but the bylaw, the height and stuff like that.
Some of those
Then you
pictures.
would be able to see under the sign, you know, you can,
Yeah.
so, they pulled a lot of them back, and now they're throwing them all back at me, so,
Mhm.
with the smart pay too.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. Good,
Okay,
yep,
thank you.
thank you.
Have a good night.
Yep, you too, thanks. Okay. Where are we? We're at D. Bond release request site plan for One Enterprise Drive, planning and zoning application 2008-09-11.
Okay, this is for Camp Taro and Son excavating their office building located at 1 Enterprise Drive. This work was substantially completed back in 2010. Most of the site improvements were done at that point. The biggest thing, there were some tree plantings that needed to be put in place, and they had some construction materials stored in the area, a residential district setback requirement where nothing was supposed to be. I sent them a letter in 2010, that's included in the packet, just to give you a little history on it. They recently advised me that they had taken care of the plantings, and they had moved the equipment out of that residential buffer zone. I did do an inspection this past week. Basically, all the plantings are in, everything has been taken care of, so the recommendation is they get full release of their bond for the property. Yeah, that was the only item remaining, and they took care of it.
Yeah.
So,
It says okay, it's okay.
we just need a motion to,
You got a motion?
well, if somebody just make a motion
Yep.
to approve the full release of the
Yep.
$69.92 performance bond for One Enterprise Drive.
I'll make the motion as defined by Kurt.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next is minutes. Do we have minutes? They're in here? There they are. So, I was here, Charlie and Ron and Dave. We're all here. Oh, yeah, this is
Ron.
Ron. Any comments?
No, pretty good.
Any motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, minutes approved. Thanks. All right, next, town planners report.
So I can start this
You
thing?
start, I'm gonna put that plan out there.
Okay.
and-
Great. So Kurt and I have been in contact with Kevin Kennedy, who is a resident who lives off of Wildwood Road. And he expressed some concerns regarding the development that is occurring off of Fowler Road at 50 Fowler Road. The concerns have related to dust and noise. So Kurt and I went out to the property and observed the construction activities. We did not take any noise readings at this point. Our machine has to be calibrated, so we hope to have that done within the next few weeks. We, Kurt and I have both spoken with the developer regarding the dust. I have done so on 2 occasions since I've been here in the past 2.5 weeks, talking with them just about increasing the amount of water that's sprayed while they're doing the crushing operations. And they've said that they've been out there doing that work, and Kurt observed an improvement, I believe, in the amount of dust and dirt that's been tracked onto Fowler Road. Don't know if you have anything to add, Kurt.
And just, you do have a letter from the attorney representing Kennedy's, but also just to give an overview, because some of you weren't here for the project. This is the 50 Fowler Road development with approximately 250 residential units to be constructed on a 90-acre parcel. Basically, here's Fowler Road over here. This is Wildwood Drive right over in here.
Mhm.
This is where the Kennedy house is over here, and there's a few other houses along Wildwood Road that buffer the southern portion of the property. It's a quite extensive project. It was originally approved, I think, back in 2008, 2009, and there were various phases. What the developers then came back to the commission to do this, break the phases down into steps based upon the economy and the ability to finance something to get the project off the ground. And basically what they came in with sort of, if I recall correctly, step one was to grade off this area right here to remove material and pretty much get the pad ready. Then they came back to do step two over this area over here, which again is the area butting up against the Wildwood Road properties. This one had significant rock, and has significant rock. During this operation over here, the biggest concern was making sure sill fence was up, and then that there wasn't tracking on Follow Road. And we monitored that, and there were, town may have an issue. The developer was pretty good in terms of sweeping the road, trying to maintain the tracking pad. We had heavy rain, some hygienic conditions, but they were dealing with that. The more difficult issue is blasting, associated crushing of the rock, because there's a significant amount of material that they crush and stockpile on the site. Some will be reused, and some will be removed, but if I recall, and the developers here, I'm going to let them sort of address what your plans are. I think it's about 200,000 yards of material that they had to remove off-site in this second step. The issue is really the blasting, and well, this area it is coming down this area over here, but it's the crushing of rocks and it's pretty close to those property owners, and there's a noise-related issue to them. It's certainly, it's summertime, and you hear a crusher going all day long. There's an impact, and there's dust. We've talked to developers about controlling the dust, and there's been water on the air, but there's dust, at times.
Do the police have a decibel meter?
We're the ones that have it. I'm going to check with them to see if they have one also, but it's generally been through the zoning enforcement officer's office that we have it. Our problem is it just hasn't been calibrated, so we have to send out to get that. Someone will pick it up and calibrate it for us, and then we get an actual decibel reading. And my honest opinion is whether it conforms or doesn't conform, it's a matter of what can be done to make it a better situation for the property owners. I mean, it's a quality of life issue.
Is anybody going out and confirm if their retaining wall collapsed or their pool's full of dirt, or?
We've been out there, and I saw there's a small retaining wall.
Cracked patios?
I think it's more of a stacked wall versus.
Yeah. I mean, is it before and after, or is it something that's happened due to time?
Now, Carrie and I went out there last week, and we just tried to monitor it, we took some pictures, and try to get a better handle on it. Again, we've been down staff, so a lot of it did have calls from Mr. Kennedy, and the fire marshal looked at as well in terms of, he controls blasting, but we're trying to make sure dust and noise are the bigger issues. And it certainly, when they're over here, doesn't affect them, they're far enough. But this area, and there may be, I'm going to guess, halfway done with taking down this significant amount. This is not over by any means. And my question to developers is, what can you do to alleviate some of the situations? They're here. Robert Sachs and Doug Anderson, to maybe give you an update on what they are, where they are, what they can do. Mr. Kennedy is also here. We just want to monitor the situation and try to stay on top of it.
Was there anything in the approval, any limitation on the time?
If I recall correctly, I think there was 2 years to do step 2 after the issuance of the blasting permit. And then probably, I think from what the fire marshal said, about a year into it.
A year into it?
Yeah. I just got to dig out a lot of records and trying to get Carrie up to speed, and we'll follow up from there. But I'm just trying to stay on top of it.
the question right off the top of my head is, well, blasting is not a new thing. That being the case, is the blasting being done properly? Why is so much grit being generated?
Blasting, the fire marshal monitors the blasting, and they have to have seismographs located throughout the property, and he's been monitoring that, whether there's, he has to make sure it's within tolerable limits. So he's been dealing with that issue. I think the bigger issue is the crushing.
Yeah, that's the dust.
The crushing and the associated dust. You know, blasting is a now and then, crushing is constant when the operation's going. And again, if you have a summertime issue, it's been a dry summer versus, you know, if you're in the middle of winter, you're crushing, people's doors are closed, everything's pretty wet, you have a conditional thing, that things change. So, but we basically wanted to put on the agenda just for discussion, update, because when the approval was given, it was the commission's, you know, approve step one, step two, and with the idea that we'd be monitoring the whole thing during progress to make sure
Yeah.
issues are kept to a minimum.
Doug?
Just one, I think one point to make is, you know, we're probably at the point in this part of the development as far as the most intense point, and the point that's closest to a flooding neighborhood, you mentioned Kennedy. And where, that's the overall plan. This is our kind of current phase that we're in right now. And what this was, we created this plan to kind of show kind of the evolution of how this would be built when we actually started the construction of the units. So basically, this is that, it was a little confusing, if you recall from the approval, where there was phase one of site work and then phase one of construction, and they kind of alternated back and forth. But we simplified it with respect to the site work aspect of it. So we're in this kind of phase two of the site work end. Phase three of the site work end would be the part that's closest to Frederick now, which is pretty much the most, the least intensive of the operation. Grades are pretty good there. This obviously is the most intense. And currently that's Mr. Kennedy's house, and then there's two other residences that are in pretty close proximity. But we are approximately 120 feet, I think, to the property line here. The next two houses are closer to 300 feet. So there is a tree buffer there that exists. The cut is, it's a pretty good cut here. It does get a little deeper as we continue to the west. Currently, the crushing equipment is set up in this area here, and we're pretty much almost finishing up that little quadrant there. So I thought we had maybe if it would help the cause. The fact of the matter is, it's got to be there in order for us to obviously process material and get the site ready for that. But we probably could move it a little bit towards the north, away from the property line, both his property line and theirs. Once we finish this little section, almost to where like the clubhouse area is here, and do our blasting, continue our blasting into to the east, if you will, and then processing over here where the activity, that's the intensity of the activity. So I did take some videos of it if you guys want to see what it looks like. But it is a process of it, and then, the site is, personally it's been very well organized, stockpiled. S&E measures are in control, water trucks there all the time, sweeping and things. It's sort of the nature of the beast, and we understand that. We want to try and be good neighbors to everybody, and make it as painless as we can and get to the finish line as we can, because we are doing all the heavy lifting now for the project, all the processing and making material that we will eventually need for the project, which will circumvent us from actually having to, continue to bring material in to build the project out, and that'll be here. And we actually have a revised kind of modified plan that we're going to probably be coming back to you guys with. Same project, same intent. We acquired another piece of property on Route 22 to possibly bring the entrance in off of Route 22. which would kind of, what we feel is make it a little bit more residential friendly versus coming down Fowler Road. Still keep all the same infrastructure, same site plan and everything. Product mix might change a little bit, but for all intents and purposes, the same project. That was kind of a issue that we kind of realized after the fact that as Fowler Road kind of became more developed as industrial, they built up the trucking company there. It was a little bit of a detriment for us from a residential access. So we actually purchased the property on Fowler Road a couple months ago. I mean, on Route 22 Nashville Road a couple months ago. And planning on probably recreating the entry off of 22. So.
Go back to what you said, I'm just, in terms of the crushing operation, from where you talked about possibly relocating it, from where it is.
Right now, we're in phase 2. This is about where we are with the plant here. It's actually probably more, it's actually a little bit probably more to the east. The plant's set up this way. There's another plant that's set up here, but the main plant, I think we can move to the northwest, almost to where the clubhouse is, sort of behind that knoll, get it away from him. You know, the operation will be the operation, it won't change.
What kind of, like, how much you talking about relocating? Just
Well,
so if we go out there.
Finish what we have here now, which is, there's a little bit of material still before our next blast, I would say, correct?
Probably another 2-3 weeks or so.
Well, how far
I'm not sure.
would you be, do you talk about relocating it? I'm trying to get just, so a visual when we go out
Probably
there.
we would want 300 feet.
Yeah,
I was going to say 2 or 300.
yeah, because from the border to his property, you said it's about 120, so you just take that, it's about 250 or so.
And as we do get into this part, we are going to move away from his property as far as the blasting goes. It does get closer to these two properties, however, these properties, as I said, are about 300 feet from the property line versus like 120 where it is. So as we do move west, technically we are moving closer to them, but those houses are a little bit, you know, kind of down a hill. He is obviously more front and center of the operation and playing with it. So I think, you know, the good part, if it could potentially be a good part, is we are doing the most intense work that affects his property now, and that will obviously subside as we you know, continue to move out of that property. And it's about half the material.
About half the material. And listen, it's been a really, really dry spell here. I mean, by the time you put the water, by the time you empty the water trucks, I mean, the ground dissipates in seconds. So we understand the situation in the neighborhood. We try to do the best we can. The town's been great about calling us, and when they call, we try to jump. We try to be aggressive about taking steps before someone calls. But it's a large site, it's a lot of rock, we're trying to address the issues. As far as the blasting is concerned, we monitor each blast. The fire marshal gets a reading of the blast, and the readings haven't been over limits. It's a tough part of the site right now. Once we're through this, we'll be in good shape.
So what I'm hearing is the problem is really the crusher.
I think that's the genesis
Kicking up
of
the
the problem
dust.
that affects him the most,
Yeah.
yes.
And,
the blasting and the
you know,
vibration, those are always things that are-
it's not Mr. Kennedy's problem that it's been dry. It's not his problem that,
Of course not.
you know, it's easier for you to have your machinery positioned where it is. You know, he pays taxes too. And, you know, I don't want to be hard about this, but, you know, move the crusher.
Well, yeah, well, just as a point, we are following the plan. So, now that this issue has come to the table over the last month and a half, we obviously want to try and be good neighbors. And
Yeah, I mean,
we'll,
After you finish that section, you're only moving the problem down the road. And you got 2 more houses, you said. Okay,
as I said,
elevation,
my
you
point
know,
was that they are further away from the
Right.
property line.
So, I mean, by moving the crusher right now, we're not moving, you know, getting another letter from a lawyer from, you know, the next house. So,
Well,
To
no,
alleviate
if we
to
do move
alleviate the
the
problem.
we will be moving north. So
Mhm.
when we move north, we are moving away from the sites. However, the blasting, as I said, does move west to the point where it, breaks back out to grade again.
yeah, but I think we've identified the problem of this, the dust as the crusher.
Is the crushed rock being used on site for fill, or is it going to be sold?
There's a surplus, so some of it has to, a good portion of it has to come up. But all the material that we will need, you know, or 99% of the material we'll need for on-site will be processed from the stone on-site.
Used for what?
Road base, drainage, you know, bedding, pipe bedding, structural fill, backfilling, things of that nature. So essentially, it's just and there was actually a surplus of actually silty fill material
Mhm.
that we started this project with over a year ago. And, you know, pretty much got through that hole without really minimal complaints or issues, you know. Like I said, a rainstorm, and some trucks might, you know, grab some mud on the road, but, you know, by the end of the day, that's usually cleaned up. So I think for the most part, we really haven't had too much carnage from a Fowler Road perspective, from complaints. Kurt, you got that?
No, I mean, you get those in rainy days, and, I mean, if we got a call, I will say, I've called them, and they've pretty much been right on it. I mean, that's been more of a now and then.
But, you know,
here and there.
one of the concerns, obviously, when we came, you know, before you guys with the project, was the truck traffic. And that, you know, you have a couple 100,000 yards of material that need to come off-site. That inherently, through experience, I know will create a lot of, you know, drama or you know, calls from the town from truck traffic. And I think for the most part, we've been pretty good with respect to that as well. And that's a problem with these kind of developments and this kind of activity. It's inherent in it, and you try and manage it as best you can, but the activity is the activity. And it's, you know, managing that process and trying to put our best foot forward, and as you said, do the things, move the crusher if we have to make it better for them. We're willing to do that, obviously, and that's, you know, that's why we're here.
I mean, because honestly, I would say it's either, you know, you move the crusher or you crush somewhere else, crush off-site, but the easiest thing to do is move it significantly away. And
Yeah,
that sort of.
it's not gonna make the problem go away, so let's just make sure I don't mislead you guys and say we're gonna move it 200 feet and everything's gonna be great, because that's not necessarily the reality.
But the further you move it, and, I mean, that just provides more buffer, that, you know, you can wetting it down routinely, I mean, that's, all those things.
Absolutely. Trucks there all the time, so it's running
Yeah.
around there.
I mean, the road, and the access road where the trucks are hauling, that's always wet, that's an easier one to do, but the idea is just to keep on the crusher, because that's
Well, it's
generating.
probably the way the wind blows through the property too, if it's going towards their house.
Yeah, it's prevailing winds, it depends on which way it's going from. Certain times of year, it's more of a, out of the northwest, but depending on which way it's blowing, it's gonna affect the residents on Wildwood Road.
Fair point. Where's Fowler Road?
Fowler Road actually is across from Giant Oak Power Equipment, and it comes in
Okay.
off of Route 80. And the property kind of, it's actually the property, there's only about 26 high and dry acres on it. Basically from with the apartment complex there, just Marshfield. So basically where Marshfield ends to Fowler Road is all the property, and then it goes all the way back to the old dump road, and then actually back down to
So
his
that's
property.
Fowler Road's where the body shop they just opened is.
Correct.
Okay.
And then actually the property swings around and connects currently, and what we have approved is an access out onto Frederick, which was the emergency access. And we just, as I said, we purchased this property right here, and with the goal of bringing the primary access off of 22, which is a kind of a little more of a commercial street.
Well, isn't that on 22, is that right by where the bridge is?
That used to be the entrance of it,
Right.
but now it's very deceiving. We're up past Frederick Street to the south, if you will, or southeast. There's a big red ranch home there, and there's a lot, and then there's 2 or 3 houses after that. So it's a small little ranch, almost across the street from where they built 2 small, like raised ranch homes.
Yeah, yeah.
Right across from there, that's the piece that we're
Okay.
going to propose to come back to you guys with the goal that, you know, hopefully we'll actually be able to start building this spring sometime.
Because I live on Ledgewood, I have no team going on.
Ledgewood is one more up, right?
Yeah.
Yes, correct, yeah.
That's a good news day.
So, Mr. Kennedy, since we have you in the audience, do you have any comments, or did you see what the proposed positioning of the crusher?
No.
Okay, if you don't mind.
Can you hold up one thing,
Yep. you crush rocks on the weekends? I know, I hear stuff coming, it sounds like it's coming from Evergreen Woods, so I don't know if they're doing something over there, but it sounds like somebody driving around heavy equipment over there all the time.
Very pleasant trip this week, the growth of the
Oh, no, I'm saying, coming from where Ledgewood is, like by Valley, you hear someone like over in those woods, like, sounds like they're driving heavy equipment there on the weekends, they're going, what's going on over there?
There's paintballers back there now that are having a little party on Saturdays and Sundays.
This might be the paintball ones.
So,
Pop, pop, pop.
No, it sounds like big equipment, like
no, there was some
graders.
Saturday work being done, but that stopped back in May after
Okay.
I called Kurt and asked him to enforce the time limits.
Okay. But you used to hear it on weekends, it sounded like someone was grading back there.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is your home right here, and then if you have a neighbor's home here, and then there's another neighbor's home that's tucked down a little bit below that.
Yeah.
So, as I said, from to the property line, it's about 120 feet, and these guys are, let's say, closer to 300 feet. So currently, in this phase, you are processing equipment set up in this area here, so it's a little bit more to the east. So what the plan was, and obviously there's no contours here, but this is the knoll that we're grading out. Is if we take the equipment and move it to this side of the knoll, which will inherently obviously be behind the knoll, but the knoll will go away.
Mhm.
And, then we will be able to blast this way, blast, and then process here. And obviously all our stockpiling is occurring over here, so that, also can be a source of dust and things. So, more or less, and we do have some stockpiling over in this area over here to the east as well. But essentially taking this plant and moving it around here will help, obviously pull it away from the home. Eventually get us, out of that area.
I have to think that it would help to get behind the hill. I mean, I've related the noise coming off that machine to waterboarding. It's that constant and irritating. We've had to live the entire summer with our windows shut and central air running because of the noise, and it's been a nice summer from what I heard. So it's really been an inconvenience to have this been done. I've been at this for about 6 weeks to try and do exactly this, and that's all I really asked for. So if you guys go ahead and I'd like a short time limit to have that move, not another stall, then I think I would be happy with that. But
We'll get through it, and, hopefully by next summer, we'll have to deal with that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Commission?
No.
And we'll monitor it and report back for next meeting.
All right, thank you. Thanks.
Kurt, so when is that going out to get calibrated?
I'm trying to have them pick it up this week. We were gonna go out there yesterday, and then we found, I checked it, it was not calibrated, it hadn't been calibrated, so.
Wasn't there a sticker on there? You should have every 2
The
years.
sticker that's out of calibration, and I called, it's actually a place in Guilford that does it, so I'm gonna try to get them to do it as soon as possible.
I know before, going back when they were,
Pardon?
I have like 7 of them. Remember?
Okay. But ours says it was last.
I'm gonna let you borrow it, not have it.
Yeah. Well, you know how the town is.
Yep. All right,
But we will get on that.
yep. So next is just under planners report, just application receipt and scheduling. Anything going on, coming up?
But the only one I can say, I believe we're gonna have for, will probably be submitted tomorrow is a propane storage facility. I think, because tomorrow is when they can submit it, and that's the deadline for the next meeting, so.
This is a site plan?
They're gonna submit
This is the
that.
site plan?
Site plan, yes.
Okay. Is anyone not here on the 18th of September that you know of? Vacations, or you're not going to be here?
Well, that won't be, actually, that won't be, that'll be for the October meeting. so-
October, okay.
Yeah, so.
Anyone not here September, though? Okay, and then, so October 2nd, you mean?
I will not be here October 2nd.
Okay. Be nice to have you here. That's when we probably would
Receive the site plan for the propane storage facility.
that meeting.
That meeting.
So maybe regulation changes. There's another, no, I guess not.
Let's get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So should I can call, is Harry typically at meetings?
Call who?
The chairman, Harry,
I'm the chairman.
Oh,
Okay.
well, yeah, we're
right.
trying to
Okay.
find.
Well, until,
to see, right.
Harry's the chairman, so he's.
But we have to follow up. Has
Maybe-
anyone heard from him? I guess it's.
I haven't.
Okay.
Fran, do you think?
Fran's out until she got a medical condition, so I think she's gonna be out for a while. We could check, she may or may not be available, but she got busted up.
This is it.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
That's great.
Sure.
Please.
Perfect.
Good.
But for the next, well, we don't have anything for the next,
September 18th.
September 18th.
Yeah.
All business has been dealt with.
We always say we don't have to have a meeting,
Well, that's what I'm
right?
just saying, unless you have
Ron,
something.
you want to have a meeting?
Gee, I was planning on coming, but if there's nothing. on the
If there's
agenda,
nothing,
do it real
but
quick.
we'll.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll talk
unless the
when
commission
we
has
get
something they want to
closer.
talk about.
Maybe we'll just make sure nothing can come in, I guess, right?
Right, there can't be a new application.
Yeah.
It can really
Right.
only be
Okay.
commission business.
I don't think we have anything, so.
Is there a follow-up time for the special use application or review that application?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, that's a good.
Oh, the discussion, I don't think there's a time frame. I don't know if they expect to be on the 18th regarding Clintonville
Yeah, no, I think that's a,
ongoing.
I would think if whether individually or as a commission you want to talk about, and I agree with what they said, you can funnel it to us. If you have any comments, general comments, because it's their application.
Sure.
But if you see anything that raises a red flag or a concern, we could certainly provide comments. I mean, I did it initially when I looked at it in preliminary version in July. I gave them my comments and just personally only mine in terms of the things that I saw as issues. I haven't looked at this final version in terms of what they did to it.
So maybe we can.
Forward them on,
Forward you
you
comments
know,
back?
to Carrie, and
To
as
Carrie?
you get them,
Yeah.
and we can sort of feed any issues.
If you're comfortable, CC everyone, or at least us. Sometimes it's just good, sometimes
Just
so we're not
everybody
making the
knows.
same comments too. It's
Right.
like, yeah.
add
Or we
to
can
it?
add to the comment, yeah, so we can
Help.
help. It
Yeah, if you
helps.
send them to me, then I can compile them and then
Yeah.
email them out
Yeah.
before.
I think they're non-binding, they're just your initial feeling. I agree with their concept of before they get too far into it. If there's big reservations or big items, they get flat.
If it's like any application, you overextend in the beginning and you're gonna, what's their alternate plan? Because that's too dense.
Well,
20 feet apart from house to house.
well, that's sort of the first comment in terms of density. I mean, that there's nothing else that's that dense in terms of that particular property. This is an unusual thing where you're trying to tie in
Yeah.
another parcel through linkage.
Yeah.
The bridge.
Yeah.
The
And
bridge is
the amount
the
of
big
septic
thing.
use coming out of those houses.
I mean, you're right,
Houses.
it's an
sewers.
ideal open
There's
space
sewer.
parcel.
Can the sewage plant handle all 30 houses?
Yeah,
I can answer that, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because that's, yeah, we're okay with that, and, but that's the least of the issues.
Yeah.
It's really more I really think it's the density issues. The people across the street, it's an R40 zone, but they're basically half-acre lots.
Yeah, I thought so.
So how do you know, it's that transition zone.
Hmm.
You know, how many, you know, is it the right number? Is it too much?
Is
Yeah.
it young professionals, or is it over 55?
How do you regulate, you know, the 55 and older, we have the regulation that puts the age restriction. I mean, but they're not, obviously, as they said, that's not their target.
Mm. Yeah.
How do you make sure?
1,800 square feet's a big house for a young professional.
Mhm.
It's bigger probably than any houses they have across the street.
Yeah,
Hmm.
So it wasn't targeted towards young professionals coming, looking to stay in the town.
yeah, because across the street, they're pretty much ranches, that's what
Yeah,
they are.
so I'm saying that 1,800 square foot house you're talking $350,000, $400,000. But now it's a cluster home, so what's the taxes on that? Because it's common property. And the road around the complex is only a 25-foot road, too. It's like a driveway around the whole facility.
Make your comments.
Yep.
Yep.
Be nice if you could tie them back to some of our existing regulations, too.
Well, that's, what they said was the old one that's what I was trying to refer them to, the one that Norfolk Pond condominiums and some of the other condominium projects
Yeah,
came in under. And there was, there was a formula for, so you came up how many units and how many bedrooms, and this is a totally different proposal what they're showing. And that's what I started to look at, is tying it back to what is something that the commission
yeah.
had allowed and lived with for a number of years.
I can look at those regs, those historic regs and compare the two to see what the differences are.
Sure.
Yeah.
The other facilities was Montgomery something? That's up off of 17, right, on the left?
Off 22.
22.
Off-
Your Village Street.
You go up the hill from the center of Northford,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's a
On
light
the
in
left.
Village Street
Yeah.
just before it, on the
left.
south side, on the south side of the road.
You can't even see it, you just see the
But
road, right?
it's set so far back on that parcel, and that one had a lot of open space associated with it. I think I think they ended up with 60-something units on.
Could be.
Um,
I know they were popular as hell when they started.
Yeah, well, but again, they were, the 55 and older, but they were 350 to 400 at the time, but they sold, and
Yeah, I was talking to a lawyer, and one of his clients put a deposit on the house and then decided to sell it and made 75 grand.
Really? Oh,
not bad.
Is there a moratorium in town at all about condominiums, additional condominiums?
The regulations that allow for the cluster developments have been repealed.
Right, I'm not saying about.
Yeah, so there's,
Condos.
right.
So
Yeah,
condos
but,
are separate, or apartments, how about apartments?
how
Like
many?
it's down off of 139, those North
North
Field?
Farm.
North
North
Farms.
Farms?
Right.
Is that, those are,
Yeah, all those regulations, I think over the years, it's sort of been dwindled down, but I think this commission, the issue is every time they require a special use permit, they go on, and there's always a lawsuit, and there's an appeal. I think that's been the history of it.
Right.
They're very difficult projects for everyone sitting up here.
okay. So I guess we just need to review this and make
Yeah.
comments.
Yep. Move we adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we adjourn.
Duquesne, D.